All right, we got a really cool thing going on in Nashville. Check out this tweet from the Preds. Julie Turris and Ida have started a podcast to take you to the inner workings of the hockey family through stories from the women and other members of the Preds organization. It is available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and as well as iTunes, I believe. Now you can find it everywhere that you find your podcasts. Ida and Julie join us now on the show. Ladies, thank you for the time. We appreciate it. I'm curious to know how this idea came to be. I mean, were the two of you out for coffee? Were you chatting at one of the Preds games? I mean, where was this idea for the podcast truly born? Ida, maybe you can answer that.
It was all Ida, so this is, yeah. And I forced her to be in. No, but I strongly believe that there is so many stories that need to be told in this world of ice hockey that we don't really hear about otherwise. So, and there's so many people that has been around for such a long time, and they have such an incredible and unique stories that I believe that people and fans especially want to hear too. And I've been covering ice hockey for such a long time as a sports broadcaster in Sweden, and it doesn't really matter how good you are as a sports broadcaster. It's so hard to get into the inner circle and get the real unique and crazy stories that all of these people around the players can share with us. So that's why we decided to start this podcast. And as I said, I quite forced her to be into it because she's so good, but after a while she felt too that this was a good thing and she wanted to be a part of it.
I love to see how aggressive you guys are with this, but when I think about the Nashville Predators, one thing that always stands out for me is I constantly hear so many good things about the families, the wives in particular, welcoming other players' wives in. That seems just a little bit more abnormal than what I see on other teams. Where does that come from? Are you guys catalysts for that too, or how does that dovetail with all the great stuff you're doing now?
Well, I think it comes from the top, so it's really the top down. So all the way to Elizabeth Poyle. And then Kristen LaViolette does an incredible job of creating a culture where she was the first person who called me when we got traded and just said, welcome, here's these girls' numbers, here's these contacts, whatever you need, we're here for you. And so you walk into the room and from day one, it was a family and there's no other way. That's just how it is there. And it's nice because the room isn't just a wives lounge. It's everybody in the organization is in the room. So you get to know everybody, and it really creates a big family that I haven't seen anywhere else as well. So it's really unique to the Preds.
And I promise you guys, we are not forced to say this. It's like
not getting paid.
No, we're not getting paid for it. This organization is something else, and we are so happy and glad that they are supporting this podcast too, because I don't believe that all the teams in the NHL would do such a thing. So it's we have something unique in this team, and we are so thankful and happy that we are a part of this organization.
Ida, maybe if you could, as the founder of the podcast, give us a sense of the background. How long has it been around? And I'm sure our viewers, for those that may not be familiar, we'd love to get a sense of the content, the kind of stories you guys cover. And, maybe you could give us an example of a real highlight over the course of the podcast history.
We have done a couple of episodes, so you can find them right now on wherever you find your podcast. And we've been talking about how you're handling injury within your family. How is it really to win the Stanley Cup? I mean, if you ask Nick Bonino, he's going to say, it was so much fun. But if you ask his wife, she's gonna tell you so much more about it. So these guys, I mean, they are talking to media every day. They are so used to it. But if you ask Madison Bell of the fiance of Ryan Johansson, how it is to handle an injury in your family, it's so much easier for her to explain that. And also she can give us another point of view when it comes to that. And also, as I said, Lauren Bonino, when she told us about how it is to win the Stanley Cup, that was something unique. And it's you get so happy about it, and you just feel that you want to win it when you've been hearing that, because she gave us an incredible story. And that's what we believe with this podcast, that all the people, all the girls that we are talking to, they can give us another point of view.
Well, I got to say, kudos to you guys for doing this, because you're right. It is content. I can say it as a sportscaster myself. That is very difficult to get, you know, the behind the scenes inside stories, even just personality. I'm curious from both of your standpoint. Obviously, you guys are in relationships with players in the National Hockey League, and you're sort of putting yourselves out there. How do they feel about the podcast? And is there sort of a line for you guys, or are you guys just kind of open books in this new podcast world?
I'd say that there's definitely a line. The hockey players, families, by nature, I feel like they're more of a private people, especially myself included with that. Kyle and I don't really open ourselves up to too much. But with that, you can also tell stories and personal experiences without getting uncomfortable with it. And Kyle's always been really, really supportive. Like from day one, I think he was the one that kind of pushed me to be like, you should do this. We have so many great people that we've met along the way, so many people in the organization that have really cool stories that we know about that other people should learn about. And he supported me the whole way. And that line, like, there is definitely a line that you don't want to cross, where it gets to be too personal, and we would never take it anywhere besides just cool stories from really interesting women throughout the league. And I think Matthias has been the same way as Kyle, always supportive.
That is one thing that they have in common, Kyle and Matthias. They are very supportive, and I think it's really hard if you don't have your husband supporting you in this kind of things. It's so hard to do it, and especially when we are doing things around their jobs and what they are doing. But as Julia say, it's not that we are not going too private. It's not that we talk about our last fight or so we try to stick on the past all the time.
No one wants to hear about that anyway.
No, that's true. That's true.
Well, Julie, just one last one here quickly. Tell us one thing that you think fans would love to know, one of your favorite stories from the podcast that maybe someone that hasn't heard it would specifically tune in for, because it's such a great story.
I think all of our stories have been really cool. We have one coming up with Kayla Price, who is the sister of Carey Price, and she is engaged to Yannick Weber here in Nashville. And I think her perspective of what it was like growing up in a hockey family is really interesting, and the sacrifices they had to make and what it's like to be the sister of an elite NHL player. That's what we have coming up. I think everybody's story, like when we talked to Lauren Bonino about the Stanley Cup, there's things that she expressed and that we learned along with her, just about playing through injury and adversity and how her family was affected by it. So each story has something unique that comes through that you just wouldn't expect. So,
and I'm not saying it just because we are doing the podcast. I would say that all of the stories are really good, and it's the really good content as well. But I would recommend you to listen to the first one with Kristen Laviolette. How is it really to be a coach's wife? That is it's a cool story, and I like that one.
Well, you know, it sounds like you guys have some really interesting content. It sounds like a podcast that's really one of a kind. I don't think there's another podcast like this out there. So congratulations on launching it. Good luck the rest of the way.